and welcome to this fireside chat with our esteemed guest, Mr. Chulanga Perera. Mr. Chulanga Perera is the Chief Information Officer, Daimler India Commercial Vehicles, based in Chennai, in India. Mr. Chulanga graduated from New York with an honors dual degree in finance and mathematics with a concentration in corporate law. His career started out in investment banking, where he took on the role of equity analyst and later moved on to the currency swaps and exotic bonding trading. His career at Daimler started in 2016 with the IT department at Daimler Trucks, Asia and Japan, where he was covering topics related to connectivity and telematics. He later went on to lead the metadata management and data lake setup for Mercedes-Benz cars in Germany. His success in the project then got him an opportunity to work in the office of Dr. Reiter, CEO and head of Mercedes-Benz Cars, chairman of the board. He worked on topics related to process optimization, leadership 2020, and M&A strategy for Daimler globally. In late 2017, he moved back to Japan to set up the big data analytics and innovation team for Daimler Trucks Asia, a team he went on to head post its inception from scratch. With effect from June 1st, 2019, Chulanga was promoted as the youngest executive in Daimler globally to serve as Chief Information Officer for Daimler India Commercial Vehicles, Chennai. Welcome, Mr. Perera, to the fireside chat with the XOTV.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
My first question is that what is the operating business model of Daimler and how all does technology drive this business?
You look at Daimler, a global organization that is segmented into multiple different units. If you look at, we have passenger cars, we have vans, we have buses, and we have financial services. When you look at the operating model for trucks, where we fall into the commercial vehicle segment, we have different organizations based across the world. And India falls under Daimler Trucks Asia, which is headquartered out of Japan. And for India, we are based out of Chennai. The way the operating model works is there's a lot of independence, but also we work together with one another on larger scale projects. But here we are very specific towards catering to the Indian market. So when you look at our operations, when you look at how we structure our manufacturing plants, it is based for products that are made specifically to India. We also have an export segment, but our main focus is to make sure the plant is up and running for the trucks we produce and the buses we produce for the Indian market segment. So when we look at technology per se, we work very independently to operate the plant here in Chennai.
And what are the key technology solutions used by Daimler and what are their use cases?
When you say key technology solutions, there is no one specific key solution. The way I approach for our organization here in India is that we look at the problem at hand and we look at what is the right technology that solves the problem. Because if you do it the other way around, where you have vast majority of technologies that could solve problems, you end up in a little bit of a predicament because you might not know which problem to address with which technology. So we look at the problem or the process that needs to be optimized. Then we look at from a cost perspective and also implementation and also what makes sense for this market. And we bring in the right technology to solve that specific problem. But when you look at our end-to-end spectrum, we have a lot of the technologies already up and running when it comes to advanced analytics, when it comes to AR, VR, even when it comes to doing proof of concepts in the area of blockchain. All cutting edge technology is evolving, one, and also has been integrated in some way or the other, either in the plant here in India, or when we have to work across other organizations in, let's say, Japan, NAFTA within DTNA, or even in Europe. So there is no one specific key technology that we use. We use all of them that is available if it can benefit us.
How are digital technologies helping Daimler to tide over the current COVID-19 crisis? I mean, I think this is the question which all the attendees for this fireside chat would like to know.
So if you look at the current situation, I think what has happened is every organization, doesn't matter whether it's manufacturing or any other industry, we are facing one of the biggest crises the world has ever seen. If you look at the economic impact, the geopolitical situation, the social economic impacts, there is undoubtedly a lot of things we need to consider. A lot of the organizations have been adopting technology. because the way the world has evolved, you cannot live without technology if you look at your surroundings. What this COVID has done is it's opened our eyes, and it's also shown us what was in the past seen as impossible. A lot of organizations had started working from home. So adopting of technologies and accepting of these technologies got expedited due to the COVID. And what we have now realized is that, there is going to be a lot of emphasis based on remote working, right? Or looking at e-commerce platforms, right? A lot of app-based solutions, right? And a lot of automations that will happen in production lines, if you look at from that perspective. Because the way we look at it within Daimler is we want to make sure, one, the quality of our products are maintained, because that's what we stand for here. And two, we enable our employees, one, to become better, smarter, reskill them, but also make their work a little bit more efficient in whatever it is that they do that is enabled by technology. And the cherry on top of this entire cake is the analytics that we do, which is giving us a lot of insights. So I think the COVID scenario has shown us that even though we are not co-located, and there are a lot of activities that are not location dependent, which can help us still run the business and accept these technologies. So that is how, at least, I'm embracing it for my organization. And also we want to make sure that all our employees are very well enabled and equipped to reskill them to accept these technologies. Now, bringing technology is one thing, but if your organization does not have the capacity to accept it, then it becomes very difficult to see the benefits out of it.
So how exactly you're managing up with the scenario of enhancing the customer experience, also the employee experience through technology, if you can throw some light on that?
The thing is, a lot of the customers, at least in the commercial vehicle segment, are looking for a competitive advantage, right? Customers are looking to use our products and one, benefit their business, but also give something to their customers. We in the commercial vehicle segment, we are a B2B business, and the way we want to cater to our customers is, one, giving them a vehicle that is able to provide a lot of insights as to how the vehicle works. So with BS6, a lot of our trucks are now, not a lot, I mean, all our trucks are connected. So there's a connectivity solution that is helping them understand how their truck is running better. It is helping them understand the concepts of TCO. So if you look at Bharat-Benz as a brand, we've come up with a concept called TCO Plus. And we also want to make sure that they can benefit from a lot of the reports and analytics we provide through the connected vehicles, not just from a fuel efficiency standpoint, but how their fleet is performing over a period. And also give them solutions which they can use sitting in one location to run their entire business across the country. For example, we came up with an e-commerce platform where they can order parts online and get it delivered, which is to them, right? They can figure out when a truck is failing at a certain given location, and then coordinate with our customer support and our dealers to make sure this truck is brought to the nearest service station and the parts are made available, right? And also communication. We've recently looked at launching an application to connect more with our customers directly, so that we hear their requirements, so that we can tailor make the products to meet those standards better. So I think when you look at how technology is evolving, we are a lot closer to our customers. We are hearing them a lot more, and they are also able to understand their products a lot better through technology. So this is coming in the form of apps, a lot of reports that we generate, and closely interacting with them on a regular basis.
So what do you think are the key pillars of your digitization strategy?
So I look at it in a multifaceted way. There is no one key pillar that will make us all successful. And I think we have to first assess where each organization is and which part of our digitalization journey you're in. So I always say that, you need to learn how to crawl before you run. And each digitalization journey should have a few pillars. First is, you need to have a strong foundation on in terms of infrastructure as well as skills, and also the appetite to adopt technology within the entire organization. So that is the first part, which I call as the foundation. Then on top of this, you need to have a sound strategy. Speed can be one, free and open source can be another, which we look at within Daimler. Cybersecurity is very important in today's day and age. COVID has shown that with a lot of people working remotely. And also then an ROI. We look at this from a very holistic perspective, where we say a return on investment is very important. Any organization at this point in time with the current pandemic that's there, investments are cut off, right, or curtailed or deferred. Does that mean you should not invest? I believe that's not the right way to approach it. Investments have to be made now because that's when you will get a competitive advantage. So just making investments for the sake of it does not really reap benefits. That's why I and my organization, within India, we look at an ROI. And in the past, if we had an ROI of 15 months, we now have curtailed it down to about 8-9 months, and we have a self-funding mechanism. So that's one key pillar, looking at our return on investment. Second thing is, we always say data is the new oil, and also building that on how can we utilize data better. One, we want to monetize the data we have. By monetizing, what I mean is, can we drive value internally through internal efficiencies with the data we have? Can we make business decisions based on data? And two, we want to connect everything. So we call this the connected X strategy, where we go to the extent of connecting even tools. We have wearables which are giving insights onto how we work on a day-to-day basis. Our tools are connected, our machines are connected, and of course our trucks and buses are also now connected. So with a large amount of data, this is one key pillar: connecting everything, analyzing it with data, looking at an ROI, and also the most important thing is reskilling your people and educating them to embrace technology, because without this, digitalization will become, one siloed approach. When each and every individual is contributing, that is when it will flourish. So with the foundation, if you have these key pillars, I think then any organization will flourish.
Absolutely. As rightly said, that for the foundation, it is really important that we should have that infrastructure, and then we should have a mindset of adopting that. And as you said, that there has to be a skilling also. So how exactly at Daimler, if you can share a little bit about this journey, that how it started and how are you managing up with this in a day-to-day routine? The challenges that people usually find in adopting the technology, and that change management basically which is required. So how exactly are you managing with those challenges?
I would be lying if I said it's not challenging, but I'm a firm believer that with challenge, and with problems at hand, you always find a solution. And for us, it was about finding that right equilibrium. So one thing we did is we made sure that we did not push technology or the digitalization journey just for the sake of doing it. So we took a very staggered approach. We made sure the entire organization was moving along. And it was not just an IT-driven thing. And our digitalization journey has just started, and there is a lot more that we have to accomplish. So when it comes to change management, I think it was more about involving the business partners within our organization from the get-go, because they understand the business processes best. We educated them of the possible technologies that could help, and then together we implemented this. So that means, it was not us pushing down technology just for the sake of it. It was an actual problem, and they were able to, through the journey, understand how this technology is going to help them. So change management became a lot easier because they were involved from the beginning itself, right? At the end of the day, for an IT department or for my organization, it becomes a lot easier to push things. But then the sustainability evades us when the business partners are not able to see that. The second thing is, in change management, is we look at it from a holistic perspective, where we say we need to close the loop. Because if you look at one problem, I can use 100 examples for that, and you only attack that problem, you will realize that this solution is going to stop at a certain point, purely because there are other portions or other strings that you've not considered. So when we looked at internally our digitalization journey, we looked at the end-to-end. When we looked at supply chain or digitalization in supply chain, we also considered production planning. We also considered R&D. We considered finance and controlling, and we tried to see how each of these segments can be converged together, so that we don't leave any loopholes. And that also helped us, one, bring in the right solution and get it adopted. So then the second and most important thing is we wanted to reduce the redundancy. So if you look at Daimler globally, a lot of solutions are made across the spectrum. And we wanted to see, can we leverage the capabilities we have within other Daimler organizations, their learnings, and borrow them proudly and implement it here, and vice versa. If we have something successful here, we share. So that collaboration also helped with the change management, because we were able to learn about the pitfalls and loopholes that we might run into with the help of our other Daimler entities. So I think these were some key areas that sort of help reduce the problems at hand. It did not eradicate them all, but it's an evolving journey. So I think we are a young organization in India, so we are learning every day.
That's wonderful. It's applicable for everyone. I think, as you rightly said, that it's the journey is actually ever evolving when it comes to digital transformation. Okay, moving down to the next question, which is more about the frontier technologies, the adoption of frontier technologies. I would like to know, like, how are newer technologies like AI, analytics, and AR, VR, RPA, or IIoT being used in Daimler and in the auto sector overall, especially the current situation?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, the adoption of these technologies will get expedited now in the current situation, right? I'll use one example maybe on AR, VR. A lot of our R&D activities on product engineering and design happens not just within India, but also with Japan and other entities. So we have been in the past also using, augmented reality and virtual reality to collaborate a lot better. And this now has become more and more prominent in the current situation. And what we have now also done is we are also thinking a little bit ahead, where we look at, let's say, the social norm in the future is going to be working from home. Then we have VDIs, of course, for our employees to work from home, but can we also supplement that with more AR and VR? Right, a more individualistic, solution that is catered so that they can collaborate more without having to be co-located. So that is a use case that's really, really helped us in the past and will help us now. And then if you look at, for example, AGVs, the utilization of this to make the employees become more efficient has become more prominent now, right? When we look at, let's say, transporting parts from our warehouse to our assembly line, these AGVs are enabling this a lot. And the way we look at it, from my point of view, is that we use the core technology of AGVs to automate further. If you look at image recognition or localization of the AGVs, we're using this also to automate our forklifts, and maybe within the plant have an autonomous forklift, right? So we are trying to improvise with these technologies. Then the last part is, I think in India, it's now very common, make in India for India. Localization is increasing. So if you look at, for example, 3D printing, this is increasing rapidly. And with the supply chain shortages that we've had due to the lockdown, we've started evaluating and sort of doing extensive research and study on how we can use 3D printing for certain components on our production lines. So this is something that a lot of the automotives, I believe, will sort of adopt sooner rather than later. And then the final portion is everything that we produce has to go out to the customer. Digital marketing and these apps that I spoke about earlier, e-commerce platforms, these are getting really, really expedited very quickly. And I think we've been lucky. We've been able to consolidate this, but with this adds on a lot of complexities. Your IT landscape becomes more and more complex. It becomes much harder to run. And what most people don't consider is the run cost of this. You accumulate a lot of data, but that is a huge stress on maintaining this. And you don't want to create redundancies in terms of your applications. So you have to be very careful how to integrate all of them, bring them onto one common platform. And I think that's where that key competitive advantage lies. The guys who are able to figure out how to keep this lean, how to always make sure that we give something back to our customers, but also reap benefits to us, will always be a front runner. And I think sooner rather than later, you will see cutting edge technologies in every area. So for us, it's important now to build that foundation.
Yeah, so unifying the collaboration and communication is really important these days. Not just the COVID-19 and lockdown challenges, but how can digitization help address the slowdown challenges through optimizing processes and enabling solutions to work more efficiently? if you can share some insights on this.
Within Daimler India, we last year and the years before, we've been talking a lot about paperless. How can we contribute a little bit more to the environment? And this has, again, a lot of benefits. It's not just the reduction of paper, but also the efficiency and the insights we get to the data that we collect. When it's in paper, analyzing this becomes very difficult. So if you look at it from that aspect, automating, even in using simple RPA, robotic process automation, became sort of a day-to-day task for my department. And we look at any and all processes that we can automate, any and all ways in which we can reduce paper and become a paperless factory, and then tie this all with advanced analytics, right? How can we use this analytics to make sure that we supplement the business to drive business decisions? But the one last point here is you can do all three of these things, but what is important is if you don't think about sustainability. So I believe, and what we are going to implement in India is a sustainable model where we have trained the trainer, one, to achieve more speed, and two, have champions in each of the departments. So for example, to one, educate our employees a little bit more, because everyone is interested in learning about cutting edge technology, right? So we train the trainer, for example, dashboard creation, right? So that they can automate even the simple processes and will not have to depend on a central IT team to do it for them, right? So they create their own BI, dashboards, and then they automate simple things, and that makes them more efficient. And we get speed, because then it's a multi-vector approach rather than us taking one department at a time. So this has, one, built the sustainability. It is bringing more newer ideas within each of the departments, and we are also able to then move from the base to more of the advanced technologies sort of to adopt. So I think RPA has played a very key part, combined with advanced analytics.
That's quite interesting. How are techniques like lean manufacturing, additive manufacturing being used in Daimler and in the auto industry?
Goes back to the two questions before when we spoke about automating. We've implemented wearable devices a lot, but also 3D printing, as I spoke about, 3D scanning, and then of course digital twin, right? A lot of the times we do a lot of our simulations there. One thing we are also wary is if it also makes not just technology but cost wise, if it makes sense to implement that. When you talk about lean manufacturing and also factories of the future, one discussion that comes into the equation is condition monitoring. Now, conditioning monitoring is very good, but you also have to see if it all makes sense. We can connect our machines, we can tap into the PLCs, we can extract the data and predict when a certain part of that machine is going to fail. But looking at, if it makes economical sense, if there's a payback in doing that, because you're collecting large amounts of data, right? And we within Daimler India anticipate that with our connected vehicles and our connected factory, at least a petabyte of only IoT data, right? And now you're talking about large amounts of data, which is, again, costly to maintain, right? From not just from a storage perspective, but also crunching and processing this data. But whether it makes sense. So when we talk about lean, paperless, it's not just supplementing it with tabs and having digital checks or removing the paper or automating a lot of the processes and understanding, but it's also understanding if it makes economical sense. So that is one key area we've looked at. When you talk about IIoT, right now we have something called the factory of the future concept, which means how do we envision our factory in the future? Just-in-time sequence in terms of our supply chain. We look at a fully, automated sort of inbound and outbound logistics, as well as a warehouse. So because warehouse management is very important, because that's tied in with your, having an optimum inventory where you have your safety stock properly calculated and your forecasts are more and more accurate. So I think this is backed by the analytics portion that we have. But then also I spoke about AGVs earlier, and the last portion is of the 3D printing for localization. So these are some key areas where we have looked at. And in the future, in the coming months, one proof of concept which we are planning to do is also on AR and VR for the factory area. I spoke about AR and VR in R&D for product engineering and designing. but also for factories, just to see if we can maintain the quality standards, but also look at improving our processes in the assembly and production line with the shortages that you have in travel. So before we used to have experts come from Germany and other parts of the world, and we used to have knowledge sharing. But now, since that is also limited to a certain extent in the current situation, we're looking at how can we remotely work on this, sort of deviating from the remote diagnostics that we have for our trucks.
The complexity of technology makes it hard for engineers and R&D people to operate from remote locations because technical development need close discussion. So how is Daimler managing this challenge?
So we've provided a lot of tools for better communication. So if you look at some of the platforms, as I mentioned earlier, again, because we are a global organization, a lot of the collaboration is not new to us. So cross-border collaboration kept happening. What we have done is we've made them a little bit more efficient and better. We've optimized it a lot more now, and they are able to communicate irrespective of where they're located. So a lot of the communication tools have evolved. We've adopted them. We've enhanced the cyber security aspect of it, because as you can imagine, the communication mechanisms are the easiest ones for most people to tap into, and also awareness of how to protect your organization, purely because you are not in a one central area where you are protected by a cyber team. You're in different areas, so that education became important. But the AR, VR concepts for collaboration is something that we have really thrived over the years, especially, to work with our colleagues in Japan. So the AR VR solution for better collaboration, BDI, is what we enabled during this pandemic very quickly to make sure that we did not lose any efficiency in the work we had to do, because overnight we had to transition into making sure that all our colleagues were able to work from home. Right? We had to ensure that their networks were met, so that they had the state-of-the-art technology in terms of hardware. VDIs were set up, awareness was created, they were given networks as backup, and proper communication tool to make sure that their interaction with cross-border teams happened in a seamless manner, backed by what we already had existing in terms of AR/VR solutions for collaboration. So that sort of puts the entire picture together for Daimler India.
Auto companies have to rely on physical testing and validation for ensuring the quality of the output. How is Daimler handling this situation?
We've not deviated from the actual process, and I'll explain why. Because Daimler prides itself in the quality of our products, and that is very important. The safety of the people who use the product is our utmost importance, and testing is a very important part. So under any circumstance, we do not deviate from the actual process that's there, and we adhere to all regulations. So we have not deviated from that. What we have done is we have backed that with a lot of technology for simulation, right? To help enable and get more insights onto how certain conditions are met, and how we can optimize the product to become more safer, but also make it more reliable as well than it already is. So because we believe we can always evolve over a period of time, and making the robust product that makes the customer happy is important. So if you ask about testing, testing is going. So we are working with the authorities to get the right authorization to do the testing when it comes to the physical testing. We use our test facilities within the plant. We have a state-of-the-art testing facility to make sure that those regulations are met. And then we enable this with a little bit of technology to improve the simulation aspect of it. So we do a lot of simulation testing before we actually do the physical testing of our product. So overall, it's not had any impact. Certain things have gotten delayed, but that is something we all have to accept. But we stand by our moral and ethical values of making sure we put the best products out into the market.
How is Daimler incorporating more AGVs in its production line to ensure productivity in the absence of manpower?
We look at it from differently, rather than looking at it from an absence in manpower. We look at, can it enable our full workforce, right? So for example, we become more efficient with our AGVs carrying multiple parts at one time, right, to reduce the takt time. So we have looked at, for example, from our warehouse to our assembly lines, how many AGVs can supplement the existing work that we do, and also if there ever comes a situation where we have to sort of look at a reduced manpower, then can these AGVs work in tandem? So for us right now, at the moment, it's transporting of parts from the warehouse to our assembly lines here. And in the future, we will look at, again, within our factories, can it have a longer, or further use cases. But of course, with all AGVs, the biggest issue is the localization and the investments you have to make. So for us, this is work in progress at the moment. We will have to further evaluate and see how this will play out in the coming months. But you asked about the auto sector, not just auto sector, in all manufacturing and in a lot of other industries, AGVs will play a very, very important part. And you can see that because the technology is available. If you look at autonomous vehicles even, it's using the base foundation of this technology, right? So machine to human interaction is increasing with artificial intelligence, and then AGVs are a core foundation of that.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. How does the connectivity situation in India allow auto manufacturers like Daimler to use more technologies for automated remote production?
There are things that are in our control, and there are things that are not in our control. But I am very confident that the partners we work with to provide the network facilities are doing their level best to make sure that our network has uptime at more than 99%, which has already been proven. But also what we are also doing is we are taking all necessary precaution to make sure that we internally maintain our network uptime. So a few things we are looking to do is we've segregated or are going to segregate a plant network with our internal network to make sure that there is no dependency on each. Why I say that is because if you look at our connected machines or our Factory of the Future initiatives, we are receiving a large amount of IoT data, which has a huge strain, I'm sure you will agree with me, on the network, right? And if we have one common network, then this makes it very difficult for employees to work. So we look at measures of segregating this. And then also another thing is we've looked at backups, right? So we've enabled a lot of, for example, providing dongles to a lot of employees who are working in areas or who are working remotely in areas that have low connectivity. We've given them increased data sizes so that they can connect better, even using their handheld devices. And also we are looking at in the future to make sure that providing smart tablets that being integrated with inbuilt connectivity so that they don't have to depend on Wi-Fi or local networks and their homes. So these are few things that we have internally looked at, but again, because that's not our core business, we are dependent on our partners who are enabling this. And I think this is an area where I also firmly believe that India, even though it has good connectivity, in the coming months will expand drastically with the new norms of working, right, with people working from home. So we, to sum it up, have not had major connectivity issues because we took necessary precaution upfront, and we looked at it from countering from all possible scenarios to make sure that we minimize the lack of efficiency due to poor connectivity or low network. I think Dheeraj has a good understanding of this area. But see, the risks are ever evolving. And I think for us, it was more about assessing and working together with our supplier base. Because if you look at the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, they are at different stages in terms of, one, how digital they are, and also the journey. So when we looked at this situation, we did not just think from an internal perspective, but we also thought on a larger scheme of things, how can we integrate them to make sure that they are a little bit more efficient and they are working in tandem with us, right? One thing we have also started doing is partnering with them a lot more to build technologies or solutions that are mutually benefiting. Why? It's because, again, I spoke earlier about reduction in investments that are happening. So since it can be mutually benefiting, we looked at a 50-50 investment where they can leverage that technology and then we can implement this as well. So supplier risk is something that is very prominent in the industry. And we can't eradicate or completely move away from it, but what was important for us is to make sure that we minimize it. So just in sequence, is something that that we've looked at. We've looked at a lot of the times, our production forecasts and our systems at least interacting a little bit more frequently from both sides. So we've looked at technologies that's enabling and bridging this gap a little bit more. and that's a key component of GIST. And also we've looked at how can we work together with them, one, not just to localize more, but also create a scenario in which they are working with us to improve the quality and also the availability of certain parts for us now. So I think it's a larger discussion we can have, but to give one simple answer, I hope I've summed it up for Dheeraj. This again has to go step by step. When we look at automating our reporting, there are a few things. One is the awareness we create, first of all. And for me, having reports or dashboards where you plug in your Excel sheets into BI in terms of, let's say, Tableau or Power BI dashboards is not going to give you all the benefits you're looking for. That'll just visualize your data better and still give you the same. So when you look at it from a UI UX perspective, or you look at dashboards for management purposes, we want to tag this a little bit with analytics. And in order to do that, one, we have started making sure our data is clean. We need to have clean data. And we build automated data pipelines that's going to give us accurate data on a day-to-day basis. Because again, the way the world is moving, knowing what has happened is only going to help us so much. We are moving into a world where prediction is giving us basis on running businesses. So the way we look at our dashboards is, can it give us some sort of description? Can it predict and be prescriptive at a certain stage? And in order to do that, we wanted to make sure our data is stored in a central location. So we have a whole data lake concept. One, the data is clean, so that it's not garbage in, garbage out. And then the dashboards, for me or for us within India, are beneficial. So we've moved away from just automating Excel sheets or standalone data sources, because that for us is just a better visualization of data we already have. So we've gone a little bit further, and we are already starting to see a lot of benefits out of that. But again, as I mentioned earlier, this journey is just starting. And we have to see now, with more and more data that we get, how can these KPIs really add value in the future?
That was quite insightful. Thank you so much for joining with us at CXO TV, Mr. Perera, and stay safe and take care.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.